Welcome to Team Effort. Today's topic is estimation, hours, points, or none at all, or how you can get paid for playing poker. Hi, I'm Morten from Hyperreactive. Today we're going to talk about estimation and the different techniques used by different teams. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. And as always, you can read even more about this topic in the article linked in the description below, where you can also subscribe to our newsletter. This time around, the article contains a huge pile of links to other articles about why you should always and or never use story points. Opinions are many, and the article will try to show this difference of opinion to enable you to make your own. The ability to predict what can be released when seems important to any production team, whatever they're producing. In this vein, a software development team needs to be able to predict when a feature can be released, or do they? How to accurately estimate software development tasks has been the topic of a huge amount of research, and a wide variety of techniques exist, but in the end it all comes down to the predictability of what you're building. So, how do teams get to this number, and what's the best way to get there? The short answer is, that depends. The long answer is pretty much the same. I'll briefly go through the overall ideas used by different teams. Hours, points, a combination, or none at all. Estimating in hours is pretty straightforward as long as all the tasks are broken down to their most essential components. Breaking larger stories down, however, can be tricky. Often you'd see teams using 3-point estimates, so you'd estimate a worst case, best case, and most likely case scenario and take some kind of weighted average of those, and using the spread as an indicator of uncertainty. Hours are frowned upon by a lot of modern dev teams, as it's a very unreliable method. The same task doesn't take the same amount of hours for different developers, nor does a single number express this uncertainty or risk of a given task. Developers might want to say that task A takes 20 hours plus or minus 1 hour, but task B takes 20 hours plus or minus 15 hours. This can't always be captured in all systems. When you estimate in points, you're eliminating the disparity between different levels of developers. Instead, you pick a reference item and compare other items to that. For instance, you might agree that adding a back button taking a user back to the front page is a 1-point reference item. So how much more complex is any other item in the backlog? Points are often estimated in a Fibonacci-like sequence. There's very little difference between an 80 and an 81-point item, but there's a huge difference between a 1 and a 2-point item. The sequence most commonly used is 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 20, 40, 100, and unknown. Some teams estimate using a process called planning poker, where everybody selects a card with one of these numbers. If there's a huge difference between the high and the low, at least one of them has misunderstood the item. A discussion on the details can then begin. Please see the description below for more about this process. Points are preferred by many teams, but the granularity of the estimates vary. Some might only use the values 1, 2, 3, and 5. Stories bigger than 5 have to be broken down. Some have adapted very fast techniques for estimating using story points, achieving acceptable levels of accuracy, while other teams might spend days estimating the next sprint. It is not uncommon to see teams combining story points and task hours. Points are estimated on a story level, and this can be done even far in advance of doing the work. Hours are estimated on task level, done only shortly before the work is about to start. Task hours might even only be estimated once a given task has begun. As soon as a developer has started working on a given task, they'll try to estimate the remaining time necessary. This ensures that the hours are relative to the seniority and experience of the developer working on the actual task. Finally, a few teams have adopted no estimation at all. There's only one size, a story. Everything then has to be broken down into a somewhat comparable story. Then you simply count the number of stories and assume that over time it'll even out. Kanban teams often use this approach. This of course leads to problem in estimating anything about release dates for any given feature. Estimates are in their nature completely unreliable. Experienced teams are much better at estimating than rookie ones, regardless of method used. But it's still up in the air whether any estimate will hold true for any given backlog item. This has led most organizations to simply adopt this uncertainty throughout the company and never promise a given feature to be available for a given date. Many teams still operate with release dates, but then they'll just release whatever is ready by that point, not promising any specific feature. Other teams simply deliver when a feature is ready, not promising too much in advance. To sum up, use whatever works for your team and your organization. I have seen different teams use completely different methods within the same organization, and it all worked out in the end anyway. If I can give you just one takeaway, it's this: don't spend too much time making estimates, as you can't really trust them anyway. This brings me to the question of the day. How do you estimate stories in your team, and is it working? Please give your answer in a comment below and feel free to tag it like this. Finally, remember to like and subscribe for more content like this. We'll be posting new content every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, so make sure to stay updated. When you follow the link below to the in-depth article, you can also sign up for our newsletter on all things relevant for modern web development teams. Keep coding, and thanks for watching.